Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well. Still raining here in the southeast United States, here in Georgia. Kind of a rainy night, but I guess that is better than some of the towns that I have seen that have been completely flooded. Did you guys see in one town in Kentucky that they said, quote, that they accidentally opened up the dams in the middle of the flood? If you guys remember what I'm saying, remind me again where that was. There was a town that was literally being flooded by the rain. And, quote, I'm just quoting them, that they accidentally opened up all the parts of the dam by accident. Let me tell you how sus that sounds. Do you guys remember in those storms at the end of last year in North Carolina where the towns were flooded? What did they do? They, quote, accidentally opened up a dam to alleviate the flood in a certain area. I don't even know how to comment on that. Yeah, so I believe someone just said it. During the last hurricane in North Carolina, they opened up the dam during the flood and they had a really random reason. And what was even more interesting is that's not the first time that's happened. It was North Carolina Duke Power did it to preserve some part of land of something or another. But, I mean, guys, shame on them. So, yes, Cheryl says, Georgetown, Kentucky. It's the shenanigans. They never cease. It's, what do you even say to that? I just feel bad for the people in the town. It's awful. I'm excited to have Robert tonight. His teachings are always fantastic. I like the detail regarding everything that goes on in the stars. This is an area that I could listen to and learn about all night, just because that's how God communicates, is in the stars. And it's something that has always fascinated me. It's everything from how simple just the arrangement is of the sun in relationship to the earth and the moon. I mean, how awesome and perfect is our God, where he made the sun 400 times the size at 400 times the distance from our position. So it perfectly aligns with the moon. It's just how awesome is our God. Do you guys have any questions before I get going? Dario says, what's a shenanigan? I don't know what a shenanigan is. I don't. It's going to give you guys an opportunity to get any questions answered, and then I'll turn this over to Robert. I'll tell you what was neat is earlier, actually for about the last 2 days, I've been telling you guys that I've had the tug on the Holy Spirit regarding the American eclipses, with the X that formed over a nation. And someone just sent me a video that Last Days Brandon released earlier today. And he was saying the exact same thing. He said that he's been getting a tug on the American eclipses. I was like, wow. It's just neat when, your message gets confirmed through other folks. There's something about that, guys. I don't know what it is, but there's a reason that it's been pulling at me. And the fact that Brandon did a show earlier today exactly about the April 8th eclipse and, the symbolism behind it. There's something to it. I don't know what it is, but there's a reason. We'll just leave it at that. I'm sure we'll find out soon, but I found that to be neat. Yeah, it's I don't know what the proper context is as far as in the relationship to it, but it's neat when there's confirmation that comes through. But the bigger question is, what does it mean? Because when that eclipse happened, it was the talk of the town. Back, if you go back last year about this time, the speculations were running wild. There was I had a really long list of very significant things. There was a prophetic checklist of about 2 dozen things that were lined up. Everything from CERN going back online that date to it being the 100th anniversary to Alex Crowley. There was a bunch of stuff that lined up with it. So I really do feel like it was significant. And everyone was like, well, nothing's going to happen. I didn't have a sense that something was going to happen. It meant something. It meant something. I think it did. And I think we will see soon what it is that it truly meant. Because I don't believe in coincidences. And it was too precise, especially mirroring the eclipses from the early 1800s, especially how, you guys remember, it went through several towns called Nineveh. It went through a town called Rapture, Indiana. It went through Little Egypt. There were some very significant markers in it. All right, let me pray, and then we will bring Robert in. All right. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this another beautiful evening to seek and speak the truth with the community. Father, I ask that you lift up everyone and fill this space with the Holy Spirit. Guide every word spoken and every ear that listens. Let this show be a vessel for your glory, a light in the darkness, and a tool to awaken hearts to your truth. Father, I bind every spirit of confusion, deception, distractions in the name of Jesus. We declare that your will shall be done here today, tonight. Anoint this broadcast and touch the lives of all who watch, drawing them closer to you. Let your truth pierce through every lie. Let your love overwhelm every heart. Let your presence be undeniable. Father, I give you full control, and I thank you in advance for all the breakthroughs and revelations and any transformations that come from this message. Father, I give you all the glory in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. All right. Hey, brother.
Hello.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, Chris. Good to be back again.
Absolutely. I love your stuff, man. It's I do. That canvas that I ended up blowing up that of your image that you made.
Oh, yeah, the
I, I
Tabernacle of Moses.
I look at it every day. It's in the studio and it's so awesome. It really is. It's extremely detailed, and anytime anyone comes over, they're like, "Wow." It is really neat.
And I
Really
did that all
appreciate.
by I did it by
Yeah.
hand, drawing all those flags. There's like 386 flag tents on the border. That represents the mixed multitude that came out of Egypt with the Hebrews, and so they're represented by the flags of the Gentile nation today. That's what they were. They were Gentiles. They were non-Jews, non-Hebrews. So that's how I got that idea to put those flag tents all the way around. But it took me a long time to draw all those out.
Wow. Hey, I can only imagine you did. Did you do it all in Photoshop?
I did it all by hand initially with watercolors. First of all, I did it in pencil. Then I filled it all in with watercolor pencils. Then I touched it up in Photoshop. The tabernacle itself, I could not possibly draw that myself freehand, so I did that in Photoshop, and that took me 4 months just to do the tabernacle itself.
Wow. Yeah,
Yes, I poured
that's a
my
lot of
heart
work.
into that. Yeah, a lot of I really poured my heart into that drawing. I
Well,
really
it
wanted to do it.
reflects. It reflects in the quality. It really blew up well. It makes for a great canvas.
Thank you. I ordered one myself. It's hanging on my wall now.
It looks good though, doesn't it? It makes a really
Yes,
cool canvas.
I
It really
love,
does.
I love it. I love the impression of it on the canvas. Yes, it's very high
It,
quality canvas. gorgeous.
Yeah,
Yep.
it makes good wall art. Is what I've found. It does. It'd go in anywhere and fit in with anything, just because there's something about being put on canvas that really gives it a unique flair.
That's what I'm all about. I like uniqueness and thoroughness and detail and all of that. And that's what you get in my presentations on the Mazzaroth, a lot of detail. And I know you all appreciate it. A lot of information. I try to go as slow as I can sometimes, but sometimes I get excited and passionate because I've been studying this for 12 years, and I still get excited to share it every time I have an opportunity. So thank you again for letting me come onto your show and share again what I've learned in the stars.
Well, I know I speak for everybody. We appreciate it. This is something that many people are not very knowledgeable on. You know, I feel like we have a good diversity of teachers that have some specialties in some areas. You know, Jeannie, she does really well at teaching Hebrew and the roots of many things. And I know that
Yes.
both her and I enjoy the stars and whatnot, but I wouldn't for a second claim myself to be, a professor in that area. I think people, that understand that's what they focus and study and specialize in, because it's in depth, complex.
It is complex. Yep. But that's God. That's God is complex as far as the creation of everything and how He thought of everything and arranged all these stars the way He did into these patterns. And it's another witness to the gospel, another witness to the Word of God and His people and His dealing with His people. It's all signified in the heavens, just like you have in the Bible and in the Book of Revelation. You have all these symbols. Same thing with what He did up above us. The heavens declare the glory of God, no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's neat. So what do you have for us tonight?
So tonight, last time I was on your show, we talked about the Virgin. We talked about Virgo, which represents God's people as a whole. They were the virgin daughter of Zion, the Virgin of Israel. And we learned how the Virgin, the word itself in Hebrew, means to separate. And we saw how that corresponded with Abraham's call to come out of Babylon, to separate himself from his family and from his kinsmen into a place that He would show him. And so that was our first sign that we went over, was Virgo, and it's the development of the bride. Tonight, we're going to now move on from that point. Now, they grew into this great multitude as God had told Abraham that his seed would become a multitude as the stars of heaven, right? And then they would go down into Egypt. But afterwards, they would be delivered. And that's the story that I'm going to tell tonight, the Exodus and the giving of the law of Mount Sinai, signified by the scales, the balances.
Oh, that's awesome. That's the area that I was in about a month ago. And that was a really just awesome read, to go back and read it in depth and in detail of the undertaking that it was. 600,000 men. That was just the men. Hey, you had the women, the children, the animals, everything else. That was quite an undertaking. I mean, just imagine looking at the size of that crowd. You're probably talking a few million people.
Yeah, they've estimated 2 to 3 million people. That's a lot of people caravanning through the desert.
Yeah.
Then be able to feed that huge of a multitude and provide water and all that, and the Lord did.
Yeah.
They murmured and complained, and He tested them, proved them a few times, but He always came through for His people. He always did. They always had water to drink wherever they went. Moses struck the rock and the water came out, and we see, you can still see that rock at Mount Horeb, the split rock. It's about 60 feet high, and there's a split right down the middle with water erosion at the base of it, there in that vicinity. It's amazing that we can see these things today still.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite artifacts and historical sites is that right there. The Wyatts have spent a great deal of time in that area. And we're supposed to be going there later this year because they've discovered some new things. But the amount of artifacts that are on location there is incredible. But it makes sense, though. Think about it. You have 2 or 3 million people camped out in that valley for a year. And there is just an enormous amount of evidence of them being there. It's over the top. Every time they go there, they find something new. And it's really fascinating for me. That's something that I really enjoy studying. And you're right. That big rock that he struck, it
Yeah,
doesn't look it doesn't look as big in the picture, but it is enormous. It is
massive. It's 60 feet
enormous.
high. Yeah.
60 feet high. I mean, it is enormous. Well, all right.
I would love to go there. I can't imagine putting my feet down on that holy ground around that mountain. Oh my gosh, what an experience that would be.
Yeah. Wyatt's brother Bill was explaining that when you go up on the mountain where it's black, you can simply pick up the stones, and when you flip them over, they're tan. Or if you
Yeah, or you crack them open. Yeah.
crack it open, it's tan. That the tip of that mountain, it's black because of God, because of the fire that descended down out of the heavens. And that right there is just it's neat. At their house they have one of the rocks on display, and
Oh wow, nice.
it's they have a really neat mini museum in their basement with so many artifacts. They have bones that they brought back from Sodom and Gomorrah. That right there is, was chilling to me, along with the bones of Noah's wife that they have. Though it's some really really neat artifacts.
Definitely. Yep.
All right, well I'm going to go to your screen share.
Okay.
All right, let's see here. Okay, you're set.
Okay. We did have prayer already. Yes, we did. Okay, great. All right. Welcome back, everybody. It looks like we have a good crowd. Oh my goodness, 131 people. I think last time we had around 80 or 90. Word must be spreading. So yes, as I was telling Chris, last time we studied the virgin woman and all that that implies. The virgin daughter of Zion, the virgin of Israel. You have the 144,000, which are virgins. Christ told the parable of the 10 virgins, the 5 that were wise and the 5 that were foolish. The very first virgin in the Bible was Rebecca, who that is specifically mentioned as quote unquote a virgin. And she became, as you know, the mother of Jacob, of Esau and Jacob. And Jacob had his name changed to Israel. And so she, in effect, the first virgin mentioned in the Bible is the mother of Israel. And how appropriate is that? When we talk about this first sign, this is where the story of the Mazzaroth begins. It begins with the woman and with the seed of the woman. There's the foreshadowing of the Messiah in this sign, but it goes beyond that. It represents his people, Israel as a whole, and all who are grafted in are that virgin. Paul says, I have espoused you as a chaste virgin unto Christ. And so we are this virgin. Christ says, I am the vine, you are the branches. You see the woman holding a branch in her hand, and she's holding a sheaf of wheat or barley grain in her other hand. And that's where you have the brightest star, Spica, not in the woman, but in the seed that she's holding. And this is the seed of the woman. And of course, that takes you back to Genesis 3:15, how the seed of the woman would crush the head of the serpent. And then you notice how this woman, in connection with the next sign, Libra, which is what we'll be talking about tonight, she has under her feet the scales. And what we're going to learn tonight is that these scales, these balances, are a very well-known symbol for the law. And that's never brought out in these other books like The Glory of the Stars, The Gospel in the Stars, and a whole plethora of other books. They show the story of the gospel, but they don't go into the depth that I'll be going in tonight and did the last 2 times I've been on here. I've tried to show you there's so much more to this story than just the gospel in the stars. And the way you get this extra information, this added detail, is you have to look at the Hebrew names. De-Latinize the names of Virgo and Libra and Sagittarius and Scorpio and all those kind of names. Look at their Hebrew names. Just look at the figures themselves. You have a woman, you have a virgin woman, you have balances, you have a scorpion, you have an archer, you have a goat, you have a water bucket, you have fish, you have a lamb, you have an oxen, you have twins, you have a crab, and you have a lion, right? These are figures that are all used in the Bible with the exception of the crab. And when we get to that sign, I'm going to give you another, I'm going to propose another name for that, another figure besides the crab. And I believe it represents an eagle hovering over the courtyard, an enclosure. An enclosure, if you look at the star pattern for Cancer, the proportions of it are an exact proportion to the courtyard around the tabernacle. And that's going to be really interesting for you all to take a look at this. It's going off script, but I'm not the only one to suggest this. There's many others who also see of the folds in Cancer. And even in this book, The Glory of the Stars by E. Raymond Capp, he also believes that Cancer original figure was most likely an eagle. And so I'm not the only one who proposes that. Also, the Egyptians, the planisphere in Dendera, it has a bird, not a crab in that position. So some of these constellations have been tampered with. In fact, we talked about the centaur last time I was on here in Virgo, and how the centaur, which is half man, half beast, was not originally a creature like that. It was simply the form of a perfect human being. It didn't have this animal attached to it. That's a Greek perversion back in the 5th century BC. So as we go along, I'm going to clear up some of these perversions, these Greek perversions, and give you what I believe is a more accurate picture of what the original star figure was there. All right, so let's move on now into tonight's presentation on what's called Maznaim, the balances in Hebrew. And this is going to relate to the next time period in Israel's history after the development of the bride. Now she's going to be delivered out of Egypt and receive the law, which the balances are a very well-known symbol for justice, the scales of justice, and the balances are representing the law of God. Okay. Now, I'm going to try, every now and then, I am going to try to look at the chat to see if I can catch some questions here and there, so you don't have to wait to the very end. I'll do my best, but I can't promise I'm going to catch everyone. And I got a few slides, quite a few slides, so I don't want to delay my presentation too long and get caught up in the Q&A, but I do like to interact with all of you as much as possible. And at the end of the presentation, there will be time for some questions. And so if I don't catch your question during the presentation, bring it up afterwards, and then we'll get to it then. Okay, now what I'm showing you here, now I mentioned last time that I have developed a new product, the Keys to the Mazzaroth flashcards. There's 48 flashcards that I have developed called the Keys to the Mazzaroth. These are a few of them here. They're 4 by 7 inches, and they tell you the whole story. There's one card for each constellation, front and back, with the Hebrew letters that correlate to each zodiac sign. And I've had a lot of orders for these, and people are sending in their reviews. They're giving me some feedback, and they love them. They really love these cards. I love these cards. I've been wanting to have something like this for years, and now we have them. Now I have them available on my website, mazzaroth.info, and you are going to love these cards. Like I said, there's so much information. There's so much detail. I don't know how anybody would be able to memorize all of this stuff unless you have cards like this where you can really study them and take them one at a time and commit them to memory. and then be able to share these cards, these pictures with your friends and family and loved ones and people you're witnessing to, and tell the story of the Bible in a whole new way, in the story of his people and how the heavens declare his glory. So right here, these are the cards for Virgo. So there's 4 cards for each sign. And so this is what we talked about again in the last presentation. We talked about the virgins mentioned in the Bible, which I already mentioned all these. We talked about the letter Kuf, which is the sun at the horizon, and how this letter represents separation, represents division. The sun is going down, it represents light, it represents darkness. We looked at the numerical value of this letter and how the number 100 ties to the story of Abraham, who was 100 years old when Isaac was born. And even the order of the number, being the 19th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, also is very, very significant. Hebrews 11 discusses 19 individuals who had faith. Remember Abraham, Father Abraham, he was the father of faith. You know, if you have the faith of Abraham, you're counted as the seed of Abraham. And how we even saw how the house of Israel and the house of Judah were ruled by 19 kings each. And how the Virgin Mary was mentioned 19 times in the gospel account. So a lot of the information that I share in these PowerPoint presentations, not all of it, but a good portion of it I have on these cards. These are the cards for Coma Berenice's hair, and I clear up that because that's not Berenice's hair. That got changed into that later. But this is the mother and the child. This is the woman who gave birth to this child. And we saw how the different applications of who this child could represent. It could represent Christ. It could represent Isaac. He was the promised child that was born to Abraham when he was 100 years old. It can also apply to Moses. So there's different applications. There's not just one application. There's an application, I believe, for every age. And so these star patterns are always relevant no matter what time period you're living in. We talked about Centaurus, the centaur, and again, how he didn't have this extension of a horse. It was just the form of a perfect human being there. And then we talked about Boaz, the herdsman, the deliverer of Israel. And this is where we pick up the story now. He's going to come to deliver his people. Okay, so let's familiarize ourselves with the layout of the heavens. So again, here is Virgo, and underneath her feet is the law. And what is this telling us symbolically? She is walking, representing God's people, walking in the path of the commandments. This represents the commandments, in that she has this as her foundation. But here you have the scorpion now. In my next presentation, we'll be talking about the scorpion. And the scorpion is attacking this. It's rebelling against God's law. And God's people are likened, when they were in the wilderness, with scorpions and serpents that bit the people. And they're likened to the scorpion. A scorpion is a symbol of rebellion. It has 13 stars. I'm getting ahead, but this is a little preview. The next time I come on, I'll be talking about this more in depth. But the first time you see the number 13 mentioned in the Bible, it's in reference to 5 kings who rebelled in the 13th year. And so right off the bat, utilizing the law first mentioned, the number 13 is a number that's connected to rebellion. And so what did they rebel against? They rebelled against the law. And here you have a figure of this. Anyhow, that's for another story. Next time we'll go into all of this. And then after that, we get into Sagittarius and this upside down altar. Why is this altar upside down, burning upside down? We're going to find out. The Bible tells you exactly what this is. And yet all these other books have completely missed it. They have it as representing hell or Hades or the fires of the last day that consume the wicked and that sort of thing. And maybe there's an application there. But what I'm sharing with you all is the timeline here. There's a sequential story being told from one sign to the next, to the next, to the next regarding the children of Israel. And so once you know where you are in the story, then you can more easily figure out what these minor constellations are that are associated with these zodiacal constellations along the ecliptic. And so once you know where you are in the story, then you start looking for altars and that part of the Bible to see, well, what's this altar all about? Right? It's right in between the time of when the children of Israel were in the wilderness with scorpions and serpents. And then after that, what was the next major thing? The next major development in the history and the redemption of the children of Israel was Joshua leading the children of Israel into the promised land. Okay, so I gave you some clues. So go back and read the latter portions of Deuteronomy and the first portions of Joshua, and you will discover, as I did, what this upside down, overthrown altar is. Okay, so here are the minor constellations now for our sign of Libra, or Maznaeum is the Hebrew name. You have a lupus. This is the wolf. Okay, so you have a wolf who's being pierced through by Centaurus, by the shepherd of Israel, the deliverer of Israel. And then you have Corona Borealis, the northern crown. And then you also have over here the Southern Cross. And you're going to learn something. Don't go anywhere, because you're going to hear this for the first time. What this Southern Cross, it's more than just the cross. In fact, it might not even represent the cross to begin with. So you're going to find out what this could possibly be besides a Southern Cross. There's other things that have the shape of this star pattern here besides a cross. Okay, we'll get there pretty soon. Okay, lots of comments I see, but just getting started here. The Lord said the stars and the heavens are given for a sign. Yes, we know in Genesis 1:14, right? When he placed the sun, moon, and the stars in the heavens, he said, let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So right there, you have the Lord. The very first thing he said about the lights he placed in the heavens is that they were to be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And then I often get asked the question, well, where is the zodiac mentioned in the Bible? I mean, that sounds so foreign. Well, again, it's those Latin names that make it sound that foreign. But if you go to Job 38:32, God asked Job, can you bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Well, you look up the word Mazzaroth in Hebrew, and it will tell you that it's the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 36 accompanying constellations right there. And then in my introduction that I gave with Chris on his show here, I talked about Balaam and how he was to curse Israel. And he said, I can't do it. I can only say what the Lord tells me to say. And he looks down at the tents of the children of Israel, and he describes the children of Israel in the language of these zodiacal figures along the ecliptic. You know, he's like in Israel. He shall pour water out of his buckets. That's Aquarius, right? He shall pierce his enemy through with arrows. That's Sagittarius. And it goes on and on like that. It mentions 7 different zodiacal constellations in this description that Balaam gives when he's looking down at the tents of the children of Israel. He's describing them in the language of the zodiac. So there's no doubt about it. This is not foreign to the Bible. All throughout the Bible, you're going to find references to God's people being connected to the stars. Abraham, right? He was told to look up, and he saw, and God told him that his seed would be as these stars. And so the seed of Abraham is likened to the stars. You had Joseph, who had a dream of the sun, moon, and the 11 stars that bowed before him. And his father Jacob interprets the dream, and he says, what is this that you have dreamed, my son? Shall indeed I and your mother and your 11 brothers come and worship ourselves down before you? Joseph being the 12th star. And so you have the 12, you have the stars not only representing the seed of Abraham, but now you have the stars representing the children of Israel, even more specifically, right? You have the same figures being used in Revelation 12, the sun, the moon, and a crown of 12 stars upon the woman that's standing on the moon, or with the moon under her feet. You have it there. So there's a lot of references in the Bible to God's people being compared to stars. We are lights. You are the light of the world. Stars are lights. He placed lights in the heavens. We are lights. We are like the stars. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. Okay, so let's look at the different Hebrew elements now that are connected with the sign of Libra. So Maznaim, first of all, means to weigh, to test, to prove. It can represent a yoke, and it also means to hear. So that's what you get from looking up the meaning of the Hebrew name for this. And this will expand your understanding of what this star figure is about. It's relating to this testing, this proving, this yoke, and to hear. Okay, and also we know that the scales are a very well-known symbol for the law. The Hebrew tribe Asher, happy, blessed, honest, to be level. I find that extremely interesting because the sign of Libra is where you have the fall equinox. It's when the day and the night are equal, they're level, they're balanced, right, between day and night. And so there's no wonder that you have these balances on during the fall equinox. And then you have the corresponding Hebrew tribe that goes right along with that, which means to be level. And he says to be happy and blessed. Those who keep God's commandments are what? They are blessed. Blessed are they that do his commandments. He said, you shall have honest scales. That's one of the meanings of Asher, is honest, honesty, to have honest scales. So it's all tied together. And then even the Hebrew month, Ethanim, means permanent brooks, enduring, hard. This is going to relate to the commandments. And then the all significant and totally brand new element that we have not had for at least 2,000 years is the connection of the 12 single Hebrew letters. Now, when I say single Hebrew letters, yes, there's more than 12 Hebrew letters. There's 22 Hebrew letters. 3 of them are mother letters. 7 are double letters, which means they have a different form as to how it's being written, if it's at the beginning of a word or at the end of a word. And then the 12 remaining letters are the 12 single or simple letters. And these 12 letters correspond to these 12 signs of the zodiac. I discovered there's a book called the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Creation. And even in that book, it mentions, which in this book, they don't even know how old it is. It's at least 1,700 years old and possibly older. And in that book, it talks about how the creator used these letters to form these zodiacal constellations when he spoke them into existence. And I showed in my introduction how many of these letters look just like the constellations themselves. So really, really fascinating. And so I've spent some time a few years ago studying the Hebrew alphabet, studying the letters specifically, and the Paleo version down here. So we have the modern script, and then we have the pictographs. And so here, the letter Hey, you have a man with his hands raised up like this. Hey! It means to grab someone's attention. It's something important. Look over here, right? That's the idea being conveyed here. In fact, the word hey means the same thing in English. Hey! It means, hey, pay attention. Hey! And then it has this value of 5. And the letter Hey can represent spirit, can represent breath, life, to behold, and to reveal. Something important is being revealed. That's embedded in the meaning of this letter, which means to reveal, to behold. Okay, all of this ties in with the story of the children of Israel when they were at Mount Sinai and they beheld the glory of God. I see a lot of comments in the chat. Looks like you guys are going at it. Seeing if I'm missing anything important. Okay, yeah. So now I think I see somebody mention something about the Kabbalah. Yes. So the Kabbalah, they get into the gematria of the Hebrew letters, but the Hebrew letters themselves are not something evil. I mean, they're beautiful. The Hebrew language is beautiful, and the letters are beautiful, and they have meaning, and they have numerical values. Something I should mention, those who are joining for the first time, these Hebrew letters, the way they're aligned with the zodiac signs, for whatever reason, those in Jewish circles who are aware of this connection of the Hebrew letters with the zodiac signs, they have them flipped 180 degrees. And so the letter He that I have here with Libra, they have it on the other side of the ecliptic in Aries. Same thing with the letter Kuf. I have it here, but they have it 180 degrees on the other side in Pisces. But these letters were intentionally flipped to veil this connection. And so they're hoarding the knowledge for themselves and trying to prevent it from being broadcast on a larger scale so everybody can see this connection. But this is where I tell people I feel like I broke the code of the Mazzaroth when I discovered these 12 letters, because these letters are like keys that open up the understanding and the meaning of these zodiac signs as they relate to different time periods sequentially of the history of the children of Israel, from the time of Abraham to the second coming. Okay, and this shall be a sign. So God told Moses that this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. He's telling Moses that when you bring your people out of Egypt and you serve God on this mountain, this is going to be a sign. And that's what I'm telling you right now, is this is the sign. It's these balances is the sign of this very thing. It's the bringing out of God's people out of Egypt to serve God at his holy mountain to receive his law. Amazing. Okay, so now the sign of Libra, the balances, references to the scales or balances in the Bible. So that's the first thing you got to do, is you look up these different constellations, these balances in this case, and see where this is used throughout the Bible. Don't miss anything. Look it all up. The very first place you find the balances mentioned in Scripture is in the giving of the law, ironically. Leviticus 19, 36 and 37, just balances and just weights and a just ephah and a just hin shall you have. I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe all my statutes, all my judgments, and do them. I am the Lord. So right there is our first reference to balances, and it's in connection with the giving of the law at Mount Sinai. Job says, oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed and my calamity laid in the balances together. So the balances are tied to calamity. It's tied to more than just that. In the book of Daniel, moments before the fall of Babylon, a mysterious hand is seen writing on the palace walls of King Belshazzar. Daniel interprets the mysterious writing and tells the king, thou art weighed in the balances and are found wanting. To be weighed in the balances and found wanting in the day of final settlement and rewards will be a fearful thing, a terrible mistake, which can never be corrected. So these balances indicate this judgment, right? You've been weighed and you are wanting, right? You are deficient. And so the balances are tied to judgment. The balances are tied to calamity. What else? And I subscribed the evidence and sealed it and took witnesses and weighed him the money in the balances. And so now we have the balances in connection with a purchase, to redeem something, to pay for something, right? Weighed him the money in the balances. And then another one in Revelation 6, of course, we have the balances mentioned and the four horses. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see, and behold, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts saying, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So these are all of the references to balances in the Bible. And we're going to see how the meaning of these balances and all that it's connected with in Scripture is going to all be tied to the story of what's happening in the sign of Libra, of Maznaim, in the giving of the law and the deliverance out of Egypt. Okay. All right, so the scales are an ancient symbol associated with the law and justice, signifying the impartial deliberation or weighing of two sides in a legal dispute. In ancient times, the scale was used by putting the objects to be weighed on one side and stones and units of measurement on the other. So this is how they used to weigh things, and it's tied to two sides in a legal dispute. And here I have an image here connecting the scales, the balances to the law. It was the Virgin of Israel who received the law. It is her foundation upon which she stands. Here you have a woman with the balances, just like Virgo is very right next to the balances in Libra. Make me to go in the path of thy commandments, for therein do I delight. And so it's no wonder that this virgin woman is walking. Just beneath her feet are the scales representing the commandments. She's walking in the path of thy commandments. Therefore, thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God to walk in his ways. And so this is the people who is walking in his ways and keeping his commandments and fear him. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, and a land of brooks of water and fountains. Okay, and then we have, and they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances. And so you see this connection of walking in all the commandments, and how God's people, symbolized by the Virgin, is walking. Just beneath her are those commandments that she has for her foundation that she's walking upon. And this is the love, that we walk after his commandments. So again, this walking after his commandments. And that's signified right here on the left side of your slide. Here she is walking in the commandments. It's really easy to figure this out, really, once you know what you're doing. Once you start looking up a virgin, looking up the balances. You just got to look all these things up, and then look up the Hebrew meaning of virgin, the Hebrew meaning of balances, the Hebrew meaning of scorpion. Then you're going to get a lot closer to where I believe you should be in interpreting aright these different constellations. All right, moving on from there. Just taking a look at the chat for a moment again. Okay, looks like I can keep going. All right, so here we have, again, the balances. And this is Moses. Now, this I believe, one application to Boetes. This is back in the sign of Virgo in the previous sign. But you see this shepherd. This is really a shepherd. It's not a centaur. And what does a shepherd do? It chases the wolves away, right? It delivers the sheep out of the mouths of the wolves. And the Egyptians are likened to wolves who were harassing the sheep, the Hebrew slaves, the children of Israel. And now here comes this deliverer. Now, therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? So he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Okay, next slide. All right, so now we have Scorpio. So in some planispheres, you have this blending of these two signs together. In fact, this star here and this star here actually represent the pinchers of the scorpion right here. I mean, it's drawn with their pinchers further back, but really these two stars represent the pinchers. So these pinchers should be fully on these scales here all the way. And perhaps even the scorpion itself closer. This constellation was blended by the Greeks with Scorpio, forming the outstretched claws of that monster. It seems to have been separated from Scorpio under the name of Libra in the time of Julius Caesar. However, the figure of the scales or balances as an independent constellation is found in all the Eastern and most ancient zodiacs. So that's Raymond Capt in his book, The Glory of the Stars. And you can see in the Dendera zodiac, here you have the balances, and here you have the scorpion. So even though some have it just as one constellation being blended together, but this zodiac is 5,000 years old, and here you have two distinct constellations here. You have the scorpion and you have the balances. Now, let me tell you something. Now, when you read these other older books on the Mazzaroth, Bollinger, a lot of you have heard of Bollinger. He wrote the book The Witness of the Stars. And this is how they define these two star names. So one star name represents the northern claw, the other star represents or means the southern claw. But they have reinterpreted these star name definitions. And so Bollinger, both Bollinger and Cap, Raymond Cap, they have Alzubana, meaning purchase or redemption. But that's not what it means. It's referring to the claws of the scorpion. But Frances Rolleston in the 18th century, she redefined these names by trying to match the Hebrew roots. I mean, not the Hebrew roots, the Arabic roots of these words with similar sounding Hebrew root words, and then she redefined it that way. But there's two problems with that. One, these Arabic star names are more modern than ancient, and two, the Hebrew alphabet didn't have the vowel points until the 11th century. So I don't know that we can be exactly sure of the pronunciation of these roots to begin with. So then to try to match them phonetically is a problem. And so that's why some of these books written on the gospel and the stars have been debunked, because they've discovered that when you look up some of these star names in the Arabic dictionary, they see the fraud. They see that, wait a minute, that doesn't mean purchase or redemption. That doesn't mean the price which covers. It means the northern claw. So Zuban al-Shamali in Arabic literally means the northern claw. It's this star right up here on the upper scale. But Bollinger and Cap, they have it meaning the price which covers. It doesn't mean that at all. Not at all. That's a total contrived meaning right there. And then Zuban al-Ganubi, that's the star on the southern scale there. In Arabic, it means the southern claw. Literally, that's what it means. But then they changed the definition to the price deficient. That's not what that means. It's referring to the claw. And so that's why a lot of these books, they do have some good content, but then when you look at the star name definitions they're using, you can't rely upon those. Those are not the meaning of those star names. Okay, had to clear that up. Okay, just checking the chat again, seeing how you guys are doing. Okay, moving on. All right, so the Greeks called Libra Zugos, the yoke. Now remember what the Lord said. I am the Lord your God, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, that you should not be their bondmen. I have broken the bands of your yoke. And so here's another application and meaning of these scales representing this time period in Israel's history. God is breaking, the Lord is breaking the bands of their yoke. Come unto me, all you that labor. So in a physical sense, their yoke was broken from serving as slaves, serving the Egyptians, right? But on a spiritual level as well. Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ has made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Right? So all of this, so the term yoke in the Greeks calling Libra Zugos, meaning the yoke, that's very applicable as well. In the sign of Maznaim, the yoke of the Egyptians are broken off the neck of the Hebrews to be yoked unto Yahweh. God setteth the solitary in families. He bringeth out those which are bound with chains. And so this bondage being broken, first in Libra, and then on the other side of the ecliptic in Pisces, this minor constellation of Andromeda, she is having her chains broken by Aries, who came to set the captives free. Son of man. So now these bands. So Aries here is got his foreleg over the bands attached to these two fish, and we're going to discover that these two fish represent the two houses of Israel, represents all of Israel, and he is extending his hand, and he's going to break the bondage and set his people free. And these bands are attached to Cetus, the sea monster. And we'll learn that this sea monster is described in Ezekiel 32 as representing Pharaoh. So look up Ezekiel 32 and 2, and he's described as a lion and as a monster in the sea, half fish and half mammal, which is what Cetus, the sea monster, is. This represents the lamb, the Passover lamb. Now we are in the Passover season now, aren't we? And it represents deliverance, the yoke of bondage being broken, being set free from all that binds you, from the chains that bind us, and the lamb coming to set the captives free. Okay. All right. So the Hebrew name. So now let's look at the meaning of the Hebrew name for Libra, and you're going to see how much more information we can get now about this sign as it relates to the children of Israel being delivered out of Egypt. So it means scale, and its primitive root, azon, means to weigh, to prove, to test. And so what do we read in Scripture? And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God has come to prove you, that his fear may be before your faces, that you sin not. So the very meaning of the Hebrew name for the balances, the scales, is to weigh, to prove, to test. And here in the giving of the law, specifically in the giving of the law, this is right after he spoke the Ten Commandments, saying, Fear not, for God has come to prove you. All right. Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them, whether they will walk in my law or no. So wow, that's just, you see how easy this can be. Just look up the meaning of the Hebrew names for these different zodiac signs and tie Scripture in with the meaning of these names. And then you can do what I'm doing right now. It's as simple as that. Now, the letter He. So this is a really, really important letter. So it's the fifth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. This is the modern script. This is the Paleo Hebrew, the pictograph, a man with his hands raised up. In most languages, when you want to express yourself to get someone's attention, you say, Hey. The Hebrew letter He conveys the same idea. It means to look, to behold, to reveal something. The original pictograph was of a man standing with his hands raised above his head to draw attention to something of great significance or importance. Two of the four letters in the Tetragrammaton is the letter He, Yod He Vav He. This should alert us to the importance of this letter, a letter of expression and revelation when the God of Israel revealed himself to his people on Mount Sinai. Right? Open thou mine eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law. So you see how the letter He, with this meaning to look, to behold, is tied to the giving of the law. Open up my eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law, and how they beheld the glory of God. Right? Now, therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And so it's very appropriate that we have the letter He representing the sign of Libra, of Maznaim, because it relates to beholding. God said that he told Moses, Behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have seen the oppression. And then he comes to deliver them, and he reveals himself at Mount Sinai, and they beheld his glory, and he revealed to them his law, his holy law. So this is all, behold, the Lord our God has showed us his glory and his greatness, and we have heard his voice out of the midst of the fire. We have seen this day that God does talk with man, and he liveth. Okay, so a wonderful connection is seen here between the letter Hey and the meaning of this letter, tying to looking, to beholding, to revealing, and the giving of the law, and beholding the God of Israel and all his glory upon the Mount Sinai. Okay, so now we have, so continuing on with this letter. Hey has a value of 5. This holy number is full of biblical significance. It is generally understood as representing balance. We have 5 toes on both sides of our feet, as well as 5 fingers on each hand. The balance between law and grace. For the law was given through Moses, and grace and truth were realized through Jesus Christ, through Yeshua. Moreover, the law entered that the offense might abound, but where sin abounded, grace did much more abound. Right? Romans 5 is the most well-known chapter on grace in the Bible. So 5 is a number of grace. And the number 5, representing also balance, which is tied to the scales, is what? There are 5 books of the law: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So again, the Hebrew letter Hey, having a value of 5, is tying to the giving of the law at Mount Sinai. And this is all under the sign of Libra, under the sign of Maznaim. But God led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea, and the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. Well, what does that word harness mean? This is King James language, so I need to look that word up. Okay, let's look it up. The word harnessed, or kamush in Hebrew, is defined in Strong's Exhaustive Concordance as arrayed for battle by 5s, or in ranks of 5, as we see in this alternate translation. But God led the people around by the way of the wilderness, by the sea of Suf, and the people of Israel went up in 5 divisions out of the land of Egypt. I mean, come on. The number of 5 tells you where you are in the story of the children of Israel. They are being delivered out of Egypt, and they're coming out in ranks and divisions of 5. It's too good. It's just too good. It's too perfect. And yes, as I alluded to already, the 5 books of the law. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, not one jot or tittle shall no wise pass from the law until all be fulfilled. In Matthew 5. Okay, now also you'll notice, some of you probably noticed when you read the book of Psalms, the 119th chapter is divided into stanzas of 8 verses each. And each of these stanzas are headed by one of the 22 Hebrew letters. And so this letter gives you the theme for what's being revealed here in these verses. And so here's another way you can get more information about the letter Hey and its meaning, and tie it to the giving of the law at Mount Sinai under the sign of the balances. So what does Psalms 119 have to say under the heading of Hey? Teach me, O Lord, the way of your statutes, and I shall keep it to the end. Give me understanding, and I shall keep your law. Indeed, I shall observe it with my whole heart. Make me walk in the path of your commandments, for I delight in it. Incline my heart to your testimonies. Behold, I long for your precepts. You see why the letter Hey is under the letter Hey, you have all this relating to God's commandments, to his law. And so this is another confirmation that the letter Hey is the correct letter that the sign of Maznaim, the balances, should be represented by, because it represents the giving of the law, the keeping of God's commandments, to walk in the path of his commandments, to keeping his commandments with all our heart, mind, and soul, right? Love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, your neighbor as yourself. It's all tied to this number 5 and his commandments and this sign of the balances. Okay. A lot going on in the chat there. Hope you guys are paying attention. Okay, I know there's so much to talk about. This just spurs on a lot of other conversations too, but you don't want to miss out what I'm having to say here, because you're not going to hear this anywhere else. I can tell you that. Okay, now let's look at our first minor constellation, the Southern Cross. Okay, now let me just get into it. So, despite being the smallest constellation in the night sky, Crux is one of the brightest and most recognizable constellations. And here you have it right here. Beautiful constellation. Unfortunately, we cannot see that in the northern hemisphere. You can see it in the southern hemisphere, south of the equator, but not where we are. And then, well, some of you might be down that way, but I'm in Oregon, and there's no way I'm going to be able to see this constellation, unfortunately. But those who live in the southern lands, look on their flags. They have the Southern Cross on their flags. This is Australia. This is Brazil, right there. Samoa, Papua New Guinea, and New Zealand. They all have this constellation, because they're living in the area where they can see this, and this is the most beautiful and the brightest constellation in the night sky, and it's so beautiful. This contains two first magnitude stars, and as such has proved a very useful tool for navigating sailors as a timepiece. And so one of the interesting things about this, now this is going to be really deep stuff, but it's not going to be beyond comprehensible. It's just follow along here for a second with me. So at midnight, the cross stands perpendicular, straight up and down. Before and after, it leans to the left or to the right. Now, it just so happens that it was at midnight. At midnight is the darkest hour of the night, and it was at midnight that God chose to deliver his people from Pharaoh in Egypt. And it came to pass that at midnight, when this stood straight up, that the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. What do you know? The coming of the bridegroom is at midnight. The second coming of Christ will take place at the darkest hour of this earth's history. And this is located in one of the darkest areas of the heavens and in the lowest part of the southern lands. When Christ was on the cross, there was darkness over all the land. The Southern Cross was last seen in the night sky over Jerusalem about 2,000 years ago. Since that time, it has not been seen in the northern latitudes. Many observers linked its disappearance with the crucifixion of Christ. So that's pretty interesting. But wait, there's another application besides just the Southern Cross.
This is pretty cool, this Southern Cross.
Isn't it a beautiful constellation?
Yeah, that's really neat. So are you saying that it has not been seen in the sky since?
Not in the northern latitudes.
Okay.
Only in the south.
Huh.
Yes.
I wonder if when we're getting close, if it'll reappear.
You know what? That's an excellent thought, because it was at midnight that God delivered his people out of Egypt after the 10 plagues were poured out. And we had 10 plagues in the book of Revelation. The last 3 trumpets are referred to as plagues. And then you have the 7 last plagues. So again, you have a total of 10 plagues, and God's people will be delivered out of that, like you mentioned. And perhaps, yes, that will be a time when we too, in the northern latitudes, will be able to see that cross, and perhaps it will be perpendicular as it is at midnight.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, because the Revelations 12 sign and the stars was pretty rare, and the only similar arrangement I think that was close to that was about around the time of Christ, if I'm not mistaken. I just wonder if we're going to have stuff that was in the sky then reappear as we get close to his second coming, which is really neat.
Well, there's going to be signs in the stars and in the heavens, and I mean, definitely we're going to see signs. So that wouldn't surprise me. But that's an excellent thought. That's something to look to be on the lookout for. Very, very good, Chris. Good thought there.
Huh.
I love it.
Interesting.
Now, here's where it gets. Now, this is brand new. This is something that I came up with on my own. Well, actually, no, I didn't entirely come up with this on my own. But somebody in a previous presentation I gave, they thought, hey, maybe it's tied to the letter Tav. The Aleph Tav. This is the last letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and it has a value of 400. So he was just thinking, these it could be the letter Tav. So I started doing some researching and putting my thinking cap on, and this is what I came up with. So Tav is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it means mark, sign, omen, or seal. It is a symbol of truth, perfection, and completion. Then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. Look at the numerical value of this letter, Tav, that represents a sign, a mark, a seal. It has a value of 400. I find this extremely interesting because this ties directly to what God told Abraham, that after 400 years is when that they will be afflicted and then they will be delivered. So so maybe this is just the letter Tav. We look at it as a cross, and maybe it's that too. But I'm saying, hey, what about this? What about the letter Tav? Its meaning and its numerical value is very much tied in with this story in the sign of Maznaim, in the sign of the balances, when God's people are being delivered out of Egypt after 400 years. I mean, that's pretty cool. So we read, therefore, concerning God's law, which that's where we are now in the sign of the balances. Excuse me. Therefore shall you lay up these words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign. That's the meaning of the letter Tav. It means sign. Upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. And ye shall teach them your children, speaking of them when you sittest in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And thou shalt write them upon the doorposts of thine house, upon thy gates, that your days may be multiplied in the days of your children, in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give them, as the days of heaven upon the earth. For if you shall diligently keep all these commandments which I command you to do them, to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, and to cleave unto him, then will the Lord drive out all these nations before you. So I think this is definitely applicable, being the letter Tav, because it fits the meaning of the letter, the value of the letter, all that it signifies perfectly corresponds to what's happening in the sign of Maznaim and the deliverance of the children of Israel out of Egypt after 400 years. Again, it says, and the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations. It means sign. It means also mark and also seal. Revelation, talks about those that have the seal of the living God. To hold back the winds and not hurt the earth or the sea or the trees till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And then as a cross, the Greek stauros, a pole or cross, figuratively exposure to death, i.e. self-denial. Christ's life was one of total submission to his Father's will. So again, we not only have the story of the children of Israel sequentially in these zodiac signs, but there's also foreshadowings of the Messiah. And so we can't leave that out for sure. We have to also talk about that as well. And so sometimes I'll go back and forth. First I'll tell you how it relates to the story of the children of Israel, and then I'll bring out the foreshadowings of the Messiah in a lot of these different constellations. And so Christ's life was one of total submission to his Father's will, a life of self-surrender, self-denial, and constant conflicts with the Jewish leaders that eventually led to his crucifixion. Christ told his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. So this is a whole nother way now to look at the Southern Cross, tying it to the letter Tav, representing a mark, a sign, an omen, a seal. God's people, the Hebrew children, were sealed, as it were, with the blood that was applied over their doors, right? In the form of the letter Hey, mind you, that this sign is represented by. Amazing. There's also, so within the constellation of Tav, the constellation of the Southern Cross, the Crux, there is what's called the jewel box. And I thought, how interesting that you have this jewel box in this letter, Tav, which represents 400, which represents the time that the children of Israel served the Egyptians. and didn't get paid their wages. This group of young bright stars was named the Jewel Box from its description by Sir John Herschel as a casket of variously colored precious stones, which refers to its appearance in the telescope. And I tied that to this again to the deliverance of the children of Israel out of Egypt. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, "We be all dead men." And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment, and the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent them unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. So I was like, what? Did the Lord put that jewel box there to imply these jewels that the Egyptians gave to the Hebrews to get them out of there? I mean, maybe. Before leaving Egypt, the people, by the direction of Moses, claimed a recompense for their unpaid labor, and the Egyptians were all too eager to be freed from their presence to refuse them. After 400 years, justice, that's the balances, was served. The Hebrew slaves at long last received their appropriate wages for their long years of servitude and hard labor. There you go. And they spoiled the Egyptians, and they gave them all that they asked: jewels of silver, jewels of gold, all of this material that they would eventually use to build the tabernacle with. Okay, our next minor constellation is Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. Now, this is very, very significant as well. And this is not brought out in these other books on the Mazzaroth. They just don't go deep enough. They don't use the word enough, and they don't look up the meaning of these words enough. So let's do that. So the Hebrew name for crown here is Nazar, and something set apart, such as Bethula, right? Bethula, that's Virgo, means to set apart, means separation. As Abraham separated himself, it means something set apart. That's the very first definition of a crown: something that's set apart. Dedication of a priest or a Nazarite, crown as a sign of consecration. Okay, so this is the sign of consecration, a sign of somebody or a people being set apart, as the children of Israel were set apart from the Egyptians to serve Yahweh. A chaplet, especially of royalty, right? And so God says, "You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself," separating and consecrating the children of Israel unto himself as his royal bride. So like this gets way more beautiful to me when you start, looking at it this way. There's so much more to this crown than just the crown of life, and leave it at that, right? Or the crown of thorns that Jesus wore on the cross. That's all there too, but there's a whole lot more. But you are a chosen generation. So not only the Israelites and the Hebrews when they came out of Egypt, but God's people today are that people, or to be that people, to be set apart, to be as a sign of consecration. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, this royal crown, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous land. Egypt was known, another name for Egypt is Kemetz, which means the dark land. They were called out of darkness, literally, from Egypt, from bondage, but also Egypt itself, which is its very name means darkness, into his marvelous light. And then you have other references in the Bible to crowns. A virtuous woman, which is Israel. His people are to be as a virtuous woman, is a crown to her husband. Thou shalt also be a crown of glory in the hand of the Lord, and a royal diadem in the hand of thy God. I have fought a good fight, Paul says. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. So again, I like to look up every reference to every one of these constellations, look at what you're looking at, and find that in the Bible, every reference, don't miss anything, and then look up the meaning of that name in Hebrew and go from there. And even in this star constellation, you have one of the star names Gimma, which means jewel. It's interesting. So here you are, a jeweled crown. Okay, continuing on. The kings of Israel were, now this sign of Libra corresponds to the 7th month, and the kings of Israel were believed to have been coronated in the 7th month, corresponding to Libra, to Mazzaroth. The first king of Israel was Yahweh, who showed himself mighty in battle, delivering his people out of the hands of Pharaoh. So I think it's very appropriate then that we have this crown for the king of Israel that revealed himself to his people upon Mount Sinai and delivered them, right? And became their husband, became their king. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle, who delivered his people out of Egypt. Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm. Here you have the Passover lamb with his forelegs stretched out. I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments, and I will take you to me for a people to be consecrated, right? And I will be to you a God, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God, which bringeth you forth out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. So I think it's very, very appropriate that you have this sign of a crown, not only representing the king of Israel, but also representing Israel themselves, who were to be set apart, who were to be consecrated unto the Lord. They are a royal nation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, I should say, a royal priesthood. This is all being implied, I believe, by this constellation Corona Borealis, the northern crown. Now, okay, our last minor constellation is Lupus, the wolf. Now, it's very easy on this one too. Just start looking up wolves in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament. Look up the meaning of wolf, learn everything you can about the wolf, and then tie it in with this story here. So here you see this connection of the wolf. And now I mentioned, first of all, I mentioned earlier that I implied that this wolf represents the Egyptians who were harassing the sheep, the children of Israel. And you can see one of the principal gods, ancient Egyptian god of cemeteries, embalming in the afterlife, was Anubis, and he has the head of a wolf. Lupus the wolf is positioned under the scales. So here it's under the law, right? It's under the law. The scales represent the law. So here is this wolf under the law. Is positioned under the scales of Libra while being pierced through by Centaurus in Virgo. In front of its open mouth is the tail end of Hydra, the sea serpent in Leo. All of this is so very symbolic. All of it. The tail, what does the tail represent in the Bible? So remember when the dragon was cast out from heaven in Revelation 12, and his tail drew a third of the stars and cast them to the earth. So what does that mean? His tail. Did Lucifer does he have a tail, a literal tail? Well, I believe it's Isaiah 9:15. The ancient and the honorable, he is the head, and the prophet who teaches lies is the tail. And so here you have the tail representing lies coming out of the mouth of the wolves. And who are the wolves referred to in the scriptures? Not only the Egyptians, but also the priests and the princes and all those who were ruling over Israel. They are likened to wolves in sheep's clothing that were uttering lies coming out of their mouth. Genetic research has shown that the Egyptian jackal was actually a wolf. So now that's been confirmed. So yes, definitely you have a wolf connected with Libra, with the scales, with the balances, with the law, with the children of Israel being delivered out of Egypt. This is all fitting together. Here you have the wolf with the balances, even with a pair of balances, showing that these two, it's talking about Egypt here. Now you have right, okay. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him under the sand. So I believe that this may very well represent Moses, the shepherd of Israel, who was sent to deliver the children of Israel out of Egypt. The first thing he did when he got over there, he looked this way. No, this was just before he left Egypt, right? He smote an Egyptian, didn't he? He looked this way and he looked that way, and then he smote the Egyptian. And when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and he hit him in the sand. And of course, that was discovered, and he fled Egypt. But I believe this represents Moses. He's the deliverer of Israel, delivering them from the sheep, the Egyptians who were harassing the sheep, the children of Israel. And the Egyptians were as wolves oppressing the sheep, the children of Israel. But a shepherd, a deliverer, Moses, is sent from Yahweh to deliver his sheep from the wolves. Wolves are used in the Bible to represent the religious leaders in Israel, false prophets, priests, princes, scribes, and Pharisees who were scattering the sheep of the Lord's pasture. They are portrayed as wolves ravening the prey, wolves in sheep's clothing who had made the commandments of God, symbolized by Libra, the scales, of none effect by their traditions. So I think this is a perfect picture of what's going on here. This is Moses delivering his people out of Egypt, from the Egyptians, from the wolves. But more than that, not just Moses, but it can also represent Christ, because he is the good shepherd. He is the great shepherd. He is the one who doesn't leave his flock and let them be food for the wolves, right? He delivers them. And so he had to do battle with the priests, with the Pharisees, with the Sadducees, all of that, right? Who were as wolves ravening their prey and perverting his law and all of that. And that led to his crucifixion on the cross, right? They had enough of him, refuting, despising their authority, or usurping their authority, as it were. Here you have, this is one of the minor constellations in Virgo, Coma Berenice, and this child, I believe, can represent not only Isaac, not only Christ himself, but also Moses, who was a figure of Christ, a figure of the Messiah, being raised by Pharaoh's daughter, right? Even looks like an Egyptian woman there. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, and she called his name Moses, for he said, because I drew him out of the water. So there you go. There's a whole brand new way of looking at Lupus the wolf. Now, what a lot of these other books on the stars, on the Mazzaroth, will tell you, no, this is not a wolf. This is a victim. It represents Christ. Basically, they have Jesus, Yeshua, because he said, no man takes my life from me, but I lay it down willingly, that he himself he's the wolf, not the wolf, but he's the victim, but he's also the one that's piercing. So you have Jesus killing himself. It doesn't make any sense at all. He didn't kill himself. It was our sins that he died for, that killed him. It was our sins. But so I think it's Moses, and I also think it's Christ not killing himself, right, but delivering his people in New Testament times from the wolves, from those that were misrepresenting him, that were perverting his law by their vain traditions and so forth. Okay, boy, we got a lot more here. Let's see, 7:30 my time, which is 10:30 Eastern time. Positioned directly in front of the mouth of Lupus is the tail of Hydra. Okay, I already covered that. Okay, yep, I don't need to cover that again. The symbolism is now clear. Yeshua came to rescue his sheep from the wolves who were scattering his flock, telling lies, and perverting the law. Yes, and this is what was prophesied of him. Therefore, says the Lord God of Israel against the pastors that feed my people, you have scattered my flock and driven them away and have not visited them. Behold, I will visit upon you the evil of your doing, says the Lord, and I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all the countries whither I have driven them, and I will bring them again to their folds. Down here in Ezekiel 34, one of my favorite passages, thus says the Lord God, behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will require my flock at their hand, and cause them to cease from feeding the flock. Neither shall the shepherds feed themselves any more, for I will deliver my flock from their mouth, that they may not be meat for for them, for thus says the Lord God, behold, I, even I, will both search my sheep and seek them out, as a shepherd seeks out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered. So will I seek out my sheep, and I will deliver them out of all the places where they have been scattered in a cloudy and dark day. So there you have the foreshadowing of the Messiah's work and the sign of Libra as well. Just as Moses delivered the people from the wolves, the Egyptians, so Christ did the same. Okay. Now, not within, but between this constellation of the wolf and the shepherd, remember, it was the wolves, the scribes, Pharisees, and Sadducees, who put Christ on the cross. Right between the two is what's called the hand of God, nebular. Now, I have not seen this with my own two eyes in a telescope, but supposedly it is there. And it's these telescopes, they have where they're programmed, and you can type in whatever you're looking for, and it will, the telescope will go right to where that is, and you can see that figure, that designation. In this case, it's B1509. And to me, this looks like a hand outstretched, pierced here, fingers here, a crown right here, and possibly a face with closed eyes behind that. Now, it took me a little while to look at this for a while before I saw that. But if this is real, if this is really there, and this is what it looks like, then I could see why that would be there. That's perfectly positioned, because it was the wolves that put Yeshua on the cross, and here that he is the one who delivered them, the children of Israel and his people, with an outstretched hand. And here you have an outstretched hand, and this crown of thorns, I believe, is what's being represented here in this guy. So pretty interesting. I thought I'd throw that in there. I'm not 100% dogmatic on this, but I just put it out there for interest's sake, just to let you know that's what they say is there. So do with it what you will, but I thought it was very interesting. In fact, I found this verse that kind of goes along with this here. It says, God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran, Selah. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise, and his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand. But if you look up the word horns, it means a ray of light. He had a ray of light coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. So I thought that's pretty interesting. Okay, moving on. Again, the foreshadowing of the Messiah and the balances being weighed in the balances. So it was prophesied of Yeshua, Yahweh is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. So the scales representing the law. When Christ came, it was said of him, prophesied, that he would magnify the law and make it honorable. And he did that in Matthew 5, which is, again, that's the Hebrew letter that this sign is represented by, is the letter He that has a value of 5. And in Matthew 5, he's magnifying the law. Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. Matthew 5:17. And he said unto them, if you think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. So here's the weighing coming in. And the Persian sphere shows a human figure lifting up the scales in one hand and grasping a lamb in the other. This being the usual form of a weight for a balance in the early East. So that was really interesting. That's from Star Names, Their Lore and Meaning by Richard Allen Hinckley. Okay, let's see. I think we're getting close to being done. Yes, okay. Hold on here. I got a problem with my... Okay, there we go. And then we have all these festivals, of course, that are occurring in the sign of Libra. You have the Feast of Trumpets, you have the Day of Atonement, you have the Year of Jubilee, and the Feast of Tabernacles. And if anybody wants to screenshot that, you can do that now. I don't know if I'll read all of this, but all of these are foreshadowings of the work of the Messiah. The Feast of Trumpets. Now, this is the memorial blowing of the trumpets, and I don't know how many of you have thought, like, what is it a memorial of? Right? What does it point to? Or where does it point back to? What is it a memorial of? And I believe it's a memorial of the blowing of the trumpet when the law was given. right? And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightning and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceedingly loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. So that's the first time you have the trumpet blowing is during the giving of the law. So I think this is what this is to remind us of. I know there's probably other interpretations of this, but I think it takes us back to remembrance, a memorial of the blowing of the trumpet that was exceedingly loud at the giving of the law on Mount Sinai. And then, of course, you have the Day of Atonement. This was the Day of Judgment, a day of sealing, a day when the books of heaven were opened, a day of affliction, of cleansing, of sealing. All of this is tied to this, to the Day of Atonement. Remember our letter Tav, which means a sign or a seal that's connected to this sign. The year of Jubilee, the year of release, the year of freedom. Is represented, is observed when the sun is in this sign as well. And then finally, you have the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, we're going to keep moving on. And now, here is a layout. So, Chris, you were talking about this earlier, and I wanted to show you this drawing that I have. I got it in this book here, Sinai's Exciting Secrets by Jonathan Gray. He's from Australia. He's passed away now. But this is the book, and has a lot of really interesting drawings in here of all the artifacts found at Jebel El Laz. And I just thought it was so cool. This is where the law was given, right up here. And then here you have down here, you have the altar that Moses was told to build at the base of the mountain. It's still there. It's right there. You had 12 pillars that were set up. You had a brook that descended down from Mount Sinai right here. Pretty grandeur. What's the word? Grandiosis. Setting for the giving of the law right here. I mean, what an amphitheater. Right here at the base of this mountain. It's pretty cool. But this is so. This slide is talking about the Hebrew month, and I wanted to really talk about this because it's so perfect. For this sign and what it relates to as far as the giving of the law. In the very name of Ethanim, which is the original name for the seventh month. We call it Tishrei, but originally it was called Ethanim. That was before the Babylonian exile. So what does the word Ethanim mean? Let's look it up. The permanent brooks, enduring, from an unused root meaning to continue, permanence, hence concrete, permanent, right? This is where the reference is to this month being called that. And all the men of Israel assembled together themselves unto King Solomon at the feast in the month of Ethanim, which is the seventh month. So there that is right there. And so this means the meaning of this name, Ethanim, means the permanent brooks. Well, there was a brook that descended down from Mount Sinai, where the law was given, just as there is a brook or a river that flows out from the throne of God in heaven, Revelation 21:1. But let judgment run down as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream, the symbolism of water here. The words enduring, so this, again, the meaning of this Hebrew month Ethanim means permanent brooks, enduring, to continue, permanent. This all relates, I believe, to the 10 Commandments that were written, I believe, again, on blue sapphire stone. They're permanent. It's not sand like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they open the ark and it's just sand. No, these are permanent. And the very meaning of this Hebrew month tied to when the sun is in the sign of Libra, has this meaning of endurance and permanence. The words enduring, continue, permanence, concrete are words that speak of the permanent, concrete, and enduring nature of the law of Elohim. Think not that I'm come to destroy the law of the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill. I read this already. Not one jot or tittle shall pass away. I know that whatever God does, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it or anything taken from it. Right? So that applies to the giving of his law. And biblical events that occurred in this sign, of course, we had the coronation of kings. On the first day of the 7th month, Ezra the priest read the law of Moses to the children of Israel before the water gate. And the Levites caused the people to understand the law, and the people understood in their place. And the people stood in their place, so they read in the book and the law of God distinctly and gave the sense and caused them to understand the reading. So this is all in the sign of, in the 7th month of Ethanim, which is tied to the sign of Libra, which is the balances, which represents his law. So it's very appropriate that this occurred on the first day of the 7th month. According to Jewish tradition, the world was created on the first day of the 7th month, the Feast of Trumpets, or Rosh Hashanah. Noah's Ark came to rest in the 7th month. The glory of the Lord fills the temple, Solomon's temple, on the first day of the 7th month. On the new moon of the 7th month, Jacob goes up to Bethel to build an altar. And then both Deborah, Rebecca's nurse, and Rachel died in the 7th month. So these are events. I always like to see what events occur in these different months that are tied to these different signs, because you can just find more of the story there, what this sign's all about. Okay, so that concludes this presentation. These, again, are the cards now that I have for what we just went over. I give a description of the balances in the Bible, additional references you can look up related to the balances, the definition of Maznaim, what it means, and scriptures that go along with those meaning, the corresponding Hebrew letter and its meaning and its value of 5, and the Tetragrammaton, and this number being linked to the Exodus, when they came out in ranks and divisions of 5. I got the minor constellations. I got the letter Tav, the sign of the covenant, and additional scriptures for further study. And then I have Lupus the wolf, and talked about Egyptian wolves and wolves in the Bible. That's all covered on these cards. And then the last one, Corona Borealis, and its significance, its meaning, the jewels of silver that, and how the Hebrews spoiled the Egyptians and borrowed of them gold, jewels of silver and gold, all of that. The Hebrew definition for the crown, Israel is a crown unto Yahweh, other crowns in the Bible that are mentioned, the coronation of the kings of Israel. So all of that are on my cards. Oh, here is, if you look closely, here is the actual constellation of Corona Borealis. You can see it's a circle of stars, so it's definitely is a crown there, no doubt about it. Okay, so that's it, and of course this is my where you can get more information on my website, Mazzaroth.info. Got a Facebook page that's devoted to this study, also an Instagram page, and my email. And I just started a Twitter X account. It's Mazzaroth.info. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I just started that, so you can also find me there. And then, of course, you have my store page where I have my products. This is my this was my first product that I made on the Mazzaroth. This was a lot of work. This has over 300 scriptural references that are tied to all the different constellations. You have my will and all the Hebrew elements that go along with each sign. You have a summary of each of the signs, the first 6 signs covering the Old Testament. The last 6 signs is the history of Israel in the New Testament. You have a drawing of all the Ptolemy's constellations together down there. And then you even have a whole section right here dealing with how I think that Cancer was not a crab, but it's an eagle spreading its wings over an enclosure, because that's the actual drawing of the constellation. The stars themselves look exactly like a pair of wings over an enclosure that's in the shape of the courtyard that surrounded the tabernacle. So all that is there. This is a 18 by 24 or 24 by 32 poster, and it has some other posters too. But and I have lots of videos. I probably have over, I don't know, around 25 videos. So there's lots more you can learn there on my YouTube channel where I have all my videos. And then I also have some articles written on each of the signs too. So you can click on that link, and that will take you to 12 different articles for each of the 12 signs. All right, I am finished. I think I'm supposed to let Chris know that I'm finished, and we're going to open it up for questions. So I'm going to let him know. I need some water. Let me see what I can see. As far as the chats are going on here, Ken and Janine Dykes, the Mazzaroth cards are very good. Thanks so much, Robert. Okay, I think I sent a set to them. Glad you got them. Liliani also, I think, likes them. Was happy when she got them. That's cool. Joyce, nice to see you that you're here. I'm on Discord. Thank you so much. Cheryl says thank you. You're welcome. Yeah. Hey, Chris.
Hey,
Coming
great
on?
teaching. Great teaching.
Thank you. Yeah.
Really
Well,
enjoyed
that's
that.
all. Glory goes to the Lord. He's the one that put it there. I'm just a messenger.
Right. Well, great studying, because that's that's a lot of focus and study to pay attention to all that, connect all the dots.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful part of the body of Christ is that we all contribute a piece for everyone's full understanding.
Yep. We all got a piece of the puzzle. That's, for students of the Word, and we should all have our little niche. Things that interest us the most and that we have to get into. We all have a gift, whether it's prophesying or teaching or right, all those different gifts of the Spirit. Definitely want to utilize those gifts for the glory of God.
Yeah, and for everyone that's watching, his link to his website is in the top of the description. So anybody that's interested in any of his content, his material, he has a great storefront with all sorts of neat stuff. And
I see Carla Summers is asking, Robert, do you have any cards with colored constellations on them? No, the constellations themselves are just black and white. I don't have them colored in. That would be a nice thing to have is Ptolemy's classical constellations. But it's like I have a 20 by 20 inch poster, but it's black and white again. But if that was printed on white paper, then you could color them all in, or if you wanted to color them. That would be something maybe for a child. Oh, speaking of children, I just came across a lady recently, and she's fascinated by this information, and she's an author, and she wants to do a children's version of my studies there on Mazzaroth.
huh?
So she and I are going to be working together on that. I've had people before ask me, do you have a children's version? Can you break it down, make it a little easier, and simplified for children? So I don't have that ability, but it sounds like she does. She writes children's stories, actually. So
Oh, that's neat.
hopefully that will come to fruition.
Wow, that's neat. Well, thank you, brother, so much for taking the time to come and teach, and I look forward to having you back on.
I look forward to coming back on anytime you got an open spot. My next presentation is already ready. So
Okay, well,
whenever you need a spot to be filled in, I'll be happy to come on and
what
give
we'll
you.
do is we'll put something together for the following week because I feel this is important stuff as far as understanding what's going on in the stars. As there's so many things happening right now. So, and with that, understanding his signs is critical because that's the way God communicates with us.
Yeah, he put them there for a reason. They're not just there
Yeah.
just for decoration.
Well, brother, thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming on, and everybody, thank you for coming and having fellowship with us. And we will see everybody tomorrow at 1:00.
Yes,
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
You're welcome. Good night.